This annoying little boy teams up with his grandfather's ghost to save his family from evil goblins. I'm talking about Joshua from the so-called worst horror movie ever, Troll 2. Sometimes movies are bad. Sometimes movies are good, and then there's Troll 2, a movie so unbelievably ridiculous that it surpasses logic, acting, and even the basic rules of filmmaking. It's directed by Claudio Fragrasso, an Italian filmmaker who barely spoke English, so it wasn't easy to communicate with actors, especially when all of them had no experience. Before we get started, let me warn you, there are going to be some spoilers in this video. We're about to spill the goblin goo on the entire plot, themes, and the worst scenes in the whole movie. So stay tuned and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with weekly releases of scene breakdowns of horror movies from around the world. Troll 2 was originally intended to be a horror film with a deep social message about the dangers of vegetarianism. Yup, vegetarians were the main villain in this one. However, the movie accidentally turned into one of the most hilarious films ever made. It may sound unbelievable, but Troll 2 has nothing to do with the movie Troll 1. It's not even about trolls. Instead, it tries to scare people with vegetarian goblins. The producer unsuccessfully attempted to sell tickets by associating it with Troll 1. If we talk about the main plot, the story follows young Joshua Waits, played by Michael Stevenson, whose family goes on vacation to a small town. Once they arrive, they discover that the entire town is secretly run by goblins who want to turn them into plants and eat them. After discovering the secret, Joshua teams up with a ghost to somehow try to save his family members. Regardless of all the drawbacks, this movie still managed to become memorable because of some funny scenes, especially that "oh my god" moment. Though it featured some of the worst acting ever captured on film, it became one of the most famous bad movies known in all of stink fart movie land. But before we get into that iconic disaster, let's break down the nonsense that led up to it. The movie kicks off with little Joshua hearing a bedtime story from his grandpa Seth. He warns Joshua about the vegetarian goblins. They can't eat meat, but they still need to be scary, so goblins found a new way. They trick people into eating green magical food that turns them into plants. After that, the vegetarian goblins can comfortably eat humans without any guilt. Joshua, being a normal kid, is rightfully freaked out, but his family doesn't bother to listen to his concerns except one family member, his dead grandfather. Yes, you heard that right. Grandpa Seth is dead, and Joshua is the only one who can interact with his ghost. Meanwhile, Joshua's older sister Holly is dealing with a different problem, her boyfriend Elliot. Apparently, he's a good guy, but he's way too loyal to his friends. As Elliot is always busy hanging out with his friends, Holly's family doesn't approve of him. We can even state that Holly's parents hate Elliot. Despite these awkward circumstances, Holly still invites Elliot to her family vacation, and surprisingly, Elliot agrees. He thinks it's a great chance to impress everyone, but fate has other plans here. Joshua's father, Michael, has chosen an exchange home program to enjoy their vacation, and that's why they're traveling to a suspicious town called Nilbog. Elliot fails to join Holly on time because of his friends, of course, but he manages to reach the town. And yes, he brought his beloved friends. At the very first sight, Nilbog seems like an old, weird place where the locals keep staring at you way too long, act suspicious, and offer free food like they've never seen tourists before. But Joshua immediately senses danger. He sees a "Welcome to Nilbog" sign, and being the only one with a functioning brain, he realizes that Nilbog is goblin spelled backwards. Unfortunately, his parents dismiss this discovery. Things get even weirder when the family is invited to eat a weird green meal. In a whole town full of strangers, Michael's family has no problem eating food covered with green slime. Poor Joshua has to stop them somehow. Grandpa has already told him the truth, and together they have to stop the evil plot of the goblins. The goblins are secretly trying to feed them magic food that will turn everyone into vegetables. Though Grandpa Seth seems like a normal ghost, he surprisingly has some magical powers. He freezes time for 30 seconds so that Joshua can make the food inedible. But Joshua needs to prove that he's dramatic enough for this film. He jumps onto the dinner table and pees all over the food. His family witnesses what he does, and they leave the food, but Joshua gets scolded badly by his dad, Michael, which in its own right is another example of how bad the acting is in this movie. Now, everyone is hungry and doesn't know a thing about this town, so the best option is going back home. But no, we cannot forget this movie has to be senseless. So instead of leaving Nilbog immediately, the family decides to stay. Meanwhile, one of Elliot's stupid friends, Arnold, is wandering through the forest and witnesses a goblin chasing a girl. Arnold tells the goblins to stay away from the girl, and of course, they don't listen and attack Arnold. His friends are just a few miles away, but instead of going to them, Arnold prefers to hide in a mysterious house in the middle of the forest. Here, they meet a woman named Credence Lenore, who clearly looks like a witch, but Arnold and the girl still choose to trust her. They even drink the magic potion, and only after that they realize the witch has plans to kill them. After drinking the magic potion, Arnold freezes in his place while the girl starts melting into green goo. Now she's close enough to being a vegetable, so the goblins just start eating her. Seeing this unsettling view, Arnold still couldn't add emotions to his acting, and with the straight face and a random fly on his head, Arnold says the worst delivered line in cinematic history. The camera lingers way too long here, making his expression look even more unrealistic. This scene is so horrifically bad that it became one of the most famous internet memes ever, getting remixed, parodied, and even used in reaction videos for years. But the insanity isn't over yet. After this, things keep getting even more ridiculous. Joshua's family finally decide to buy some groceries, but the stores are all closed. They do find a church where the townsmen are explaining how eating meat is an evil act. Seems like a regular vegetarian meeting, but these anti-meat ghouls have a much more sinister mission. They almost kill Joshua, but Michael saves him and finally understands that Nilbog is just not safe. Another of Elliot's stupid friends reach the house where Arnold is kept, and he gets killed by the witch, as Arnold has turned into a tree, so the witch decides to cut him into firewood. Back at the exchange house, the townspeople throw a party to apologize for whatever happened at the church. However, Joshua is not falling for their sweet little lies. He asks Grandpa Seth for help, but all of a sudden, the witch jumps out of the mirror. Luckily, Grandpa is not a normal ghost, so he uses an axe to cut off the witch's hands. Afterwards, they try using a bottle bomb to distract everyone at the party, but the town's priest catches them. He sends Grandpa to hell, where he belongs, but during his exit, Grandpa kills the priest with a blast. After this incident, the reality of the townsmen is finally revealed. All of them are goblins in disguise. They surround the house, and Elliot and Joshua's family are trapped inside. Now it's time to take help from the person who started this whole goblin story. Finally, like a normal horror movie, Joshua's family lights up some candles and communicates with Grandpa Seth's ghost. He appears again to waste 10 more minutes of the movie and gives Joshua a secret weapon. It's not a gun, but a double-decker bologna sandwich. This double-decker meaty sandwich makes Joshua a walking bomb for goblins. The family immediately leaves Nilbog and returns home, thinking they're safe. However, they forget about the exchange family living in their home. And you guessed it, they too were goblins, and Joshua's mom became their first victim. The last thing we hear is Joshua screaming in terror as the screen cuts to black. And just like that, the nonsensical fever dream has come to an end. I guess if there's a conclusion that we could add here, it's a message that warns us to stay away from vegetarians? But let's be real, Troll 2 is an absolute flop. The acting, just unbearable. The special effects look like something from a kindergarten craft project, and the plot is a mess of random nonsense. But somehow, the sum of all of these flaws made Troll 2 a perfect comedy movie. One of the best parts are the weird dialogues, making zero sense, but they sound hilarious. Besides the iconic, "oh my god," there's another one which people often use without knowing the origin. It was delivered when Joshua destroyed all of the food. His father scolded him by saying,
"Can't piss on hospitality. I won't allow it."
"You can't piss on hospitality." Funny, and definitely the best sentence used in the entire movie. Other highlights were the newbie actors. They read lines exactly as they were written without any personal effort, which is why you get the gem after gem of terrible acting. Then there's the goblin costumes, which looked like they were made out of paper bags and duct tape. They don't blink, their mouths barely move, and their attacks look more like aggressive hugs. Despite being one of the worst movies ever made, Troll 2 gained a massive cult following anyway. However, the actors did regret being a part of it. After growing up, the kid who played Joshua made a documentary called The Best Worst Movie and interviewed the director and the cast. The director proudly explained that he was annoyed by his vegetarian friends and wanted to make a horror movie about them. He doesn't understand why people found it funny. Is this director an innocent being, or was he being sarcastic? We never know, but if you still have some brain cells left after watching Troll 2, then you should spare some time to watch the documentary. And there you have it, folks. Troll 2, a film that somehow defies the laws of good filmmaking and creates a world of weirdness, bad acting, and questionable decision-making that can only be appreciated in the most ironic of ways. Whether you love it for its so bad it's so good charm, or just for the endless laughs of how far off the rails it goes, it's undeniable that this cult classic is something. Well, something you really can't forget. Can you? Would I recommend this movie to anyone? Definitely. Everyone deserves a laugh and maybe a little trauma. What was your favorite scene? Let's talk in the comments.